Well, congratulations. You made it through another week. This is Community Church. My name is Lou, and you're part of this week's online service. So I'm willing to bet that there's a bunch of people out there that don't normally tune in with us, but you're doing it today because you're doing your mom a favor. And if that's you, kudos to you, because today's Mother's Day and we gotta make mom happy, right? Or maybe you're tuning in with us for the first time just because you just heard about us, or maybe you're feeling adventurous, I don't know, but for whatever reason, whenever and from wherever you're watching this, we are really glad, I'm really glad that you decided to tune in with us today. If you go over to communitychurch.net/connect, there's a little form on there. And normally I say it'll take about 2 minutes to fill out, but really I think it'll take about 1 minute to fill out, especially if you've already had some coffee. And if you fill that form out, that'll help you to stay connected with us and us to stay connected with you. We're not gonna flood your inbox with any kind of crazy information or sell your information or anything like that. We just really like to know when we have new people here for the first time. And if you do that for us today, we'll send you a gift card in the mail just to say thanks for taking the time to do that. And speaking of that little connect form, if you know me, you probably know that I'm really not a big fan of email. Usually takes me a long time to reply to emails. I don't really like sending them. And so we really haven't sent emails much at all. And we're still not gonna go crazy with emails. But this past week, we sent out our first email update since I think we launched back in January. And the reason we did that was because there are so many cool stories. There's so much good news happening here in this community. It's so cool to see people come alongside one another and help each other out during this difficult season of life. And so we wanted to pass that news along to you guys. And so if you want to be part of that, like I said, we're still not going to go crazy, but if you want to be part of those more regular updates, go over to communitychurch.net/connect and fill out that form. So I say this every single week, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to go into all the details of it, but every week we play a little game called Where's Tom? And if you want to know all the rules and details of how to play that game, you can go to communitychurch.net/Tom. Yes, we did this. communitychurch.net/Tom, and there's a little video on there that'll tell you all the rules and details of how to play Where's Tom? Well, like I mentioned earlier, there's some really amazing stuff happening here in the community. Some really great stuff happening here at the church. And if you've been on the receiving end of any of that, if you've benefited at all from anything that our church has done, it's only because people like you have been generous financially. And so that's why we think it's so important to express that every week, but also to let you know that if you want to partner with us, if you want to get behind what's happening here at Community Church, you can do that at communitychurch.net/give. But please, we don't leverage guilt around here. So if you're new to this, especially if you're new to church, new to our community, please don't feel any pressure to give. We're just glad that you're hanging out with us today. So if you stick around with us for a little while, what you're gonna see is that we try to constantly ask questions about how we can better meet the needs of people in our community and meet the needs of people here in our church. And what this whole pandemic has really shown us is the importance of helping people, especially parents, to win at home. What some real basic research and some simple math has shown us is that your kids are gonna spend if you're a parent with kids at home, they're gonna spend well over 3,000 hours with you this year. And if you were to bring them, even if you were to bring them to church every single week for an entire year, that would give us about 52 hours with us. So when you look at it that way, it's pretty obvious to see that time at home carries much more weight than time at church. And so we've been asking this question, even after we open our doors again, how do we continue to help parents to win at home? We don't know exactly what that's gonna look like, but if you were here when we were meeting in person and we have your information, you've been receiving stuff, that's all been part of this effort to help people win at home, and that's gonna continue to change. We're gonna continue to try and figure out how we can more effectively do stuff like that. But if you haven't received anything from us and you want to, or if you know somebody you think would benefit from this, you can send them over to our website, communitychurch.net/win-at-home. And there's a little form on there. We're gonna ask some questions. We're gonna need their address. We're gonna need the names of their kids. not because we're coming up with some crazy database of information, but because we want to know what's appropriate to send them. And so you can send them over to there, and then they'll be included in our efforts here to help parents win at home. But if you have any ideas, or if there's any feedback you could give us, or ways that you think you would feel more supported at home, please don't hesitate to let us know. Like I said, that's the question that's on the forefront of our minds. And of course, if there's ever a time where you're like, okay, don't send me anything, just send us an email, tell us to stop, we'll take you right off the list. Well, finally, and most importantly, today is Mother's Day. And this week, we came across a little video that I think a lot of you are going to be able to connect with. Definitely not all of you, not everybody's in this situation, but I know a lot of our moms are in this situation right now, and hopefully this will be kind of soothing for you.
Mother's Day looks a lot different this year. And our moms may be spending a lot of time with their kids right now. A lot. Like, so much time. And even though they love their kids to the moon and back, sometimes moms need a little alone time.
Mommy!
You know, to recharge.
Go talk to Daddy. Mommy! Where are you? Are you in there? Mommy! We can see you. Up and up!
I just wanna lie in the sun.
But no matter what's happening in the world, their favorite way to spend time is with their family.
But now my only win is now, and my only wear is when I'm by your side.
In good times, in hard times,
Mom! You're breaking everything!
in uncertain times. Thank you, Mom, for making time for us every single day.
So Mother's Day is a day where we can stop for a couple minutes, or hopefully for the whole day, and show some appreciation to the moms in our lives. But maybe you haven't thought about this, but Mother's Day is actually a really difficult day to talk about from a stage, or in this case, to a camera. And the reason why is because it's a day of extreme emotion, and those emotions are really all across the spectrum. No matter what you say on Mother's Day, there's going to be somebody who's feeling the exact opposite. In fact, even that video that we just showed, while I'm sure there are a lot of you that were like, yes, that's exactly where I am, right? I'm sure that there are some of you, maybe some of you that are working on the front lines, or some essential workers that are like, I would kill to be able to spend that much time with my kids. So what's soothing to some is painful for others. It's a really complicated day. There are some people that have recently lost their moms, maybe because of the virus, or maybe it just happened in the last year, and today is especially hard because her absence is more obvious. That emptiness is kind of in your face all day. Or maybe you grew up having a really difficult relationship with your mother, and this is a reminder of that. Or maybe you've wanted to have biological children yourself, and you haven't been able to. And while we don't think that makes you any less valuable or gives you any less potential to influence people that God has given you to care for, that doesn't mean that Mother's Day is an easy day. And then I know that there are people, mothers in our church family, that have lost children. Some that have miscarried, and others that have had to attend the funerals of their own children. And if you're in any of those categories, or in any other category that might make Mother's Day difficult for you, we want you to know that we're grieving with you, that our hearts are with you, that our prayers are with you. Today, especially, because there are so many people that are celebrating. And then I know that there are some people whose lives have been turned upside down, some mothers. Mothers maybe who are on the front lines right now, and maybe you are missing your kids because you can't see them as much as you want to. Or maybe there are mothers that are essential workers that are putting in more hours, or in some way or another, this pandemic has changed the way that you care for your family. For for you. We are grateful that you're a mother, and we're grateful that you're helping to carry us through this. And then there are other people for whom Mother's Day is typically a day of celebration and appreciation, but maybe it looks a little bit different this year. For me, there are a few mothers in my life. There's my biological mother, who had to deal with, she raised me. She had to deal with everything that I put her through, and really has to continue to deal with everything that I put her through. Then there's my mother-in-law, who raised my wife, Allie, who has to deal with my shenanigans as well, every once in a while. And then there's Allie, my wife, who I watch mother our children. And what I can tell you about them, and from what I've gathered from just about every other mother I know, moms are some of the hardest working and unappreciated people in the world. You are the heroes of so many stories, and you almost never get the praise and recognition that you deserve. And so I'm grateful that we can take one day to show you some of the gratitude that you deserve every single day for all the hard work and sacrifices you make for us so we could be who we are. So today, especially moms, I hope that you feel loved. I hope that you feel cared for and appreciated. Happy Mother's Day. Well, that's all I've got for you today. You're about to participate in this week's online service, in your online community. And what you're going to hear is a song that was put together by Tom, who's one of our pastors here, who also oversees our community groups. And then you're going to hear part 3 of our series we're calling Roots. We're talking about how to grow your faith. And that is also going to be from Tom. So, like I said, I'm really glad that you're connected with us. And I hope that you enjoy this week's online service.
He is jealous for me. Love's like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I'm unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. Oh, how he loves us so. Oh, how he loves us. How he loves us so. He is jealous for me. Love's like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I'm unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. Know how he loves us so. surprise, drawn to redemption by the grace in his eyes. If his grace is an ocean, we are all sinking. And heaven meets earth like a sloppy wet kiss, and my heart turns violently inside of my chest. I don't have time to maintain these regrets when I think about the way that he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. Yeah, he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves.
Hello there. Nice to see you. As you can tell, I'm recording this from my home. I'm not recording this from the church building because Lou really wanted to make sure that our social distancing was on point. In fact, he was so adamant about it that he said 6 feet is not enough. So I said, how about 20 plus miles away? And he's like, bingo. Just kidding. But anyway, here I am. We're in part 3 of a message series called Roots. We're talking about how to grow our faith. And faith, simply put, is our confidence in God. It's our trust in Him. Our trust that He is who He says He is and that He will do what He says He will do. And faith, for us, for those who call ourselves Christians, faith is like the roots of a tree. Roots provide 2 major functions. They provide support and stability when things are crazy, right? So that the tree can stand tall and weather the storms, literal storms. So faith for us helps us weather the storms of life, keeps us anchored, keeps us planted, keeps us stable when things go crazy, because our faith is not in circumstances. Our trust is not in our ability. Our trust is in God and who He says He is. And roots also provide sustenance for the tree, right? It absorbs nutrients through the ground and water, and that's what faith is for us. It sustains us through this life. And what we're doing in this series is we're talking about how to grow our faith, how to grow our confidence in God. Now, for this message, I kind of want to talk about something uncomfortable, something that might make you feel a little like, I'm not so sure about that. Something that might make you want to go, you know what? This kind of faith isn't for me. And to illustrate this, I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you a story about a guy named Charlie. I met Charlie almost 20 years ago. Charlie was a great friend. He became a great friend. And I met him at a church in Centereach, where he was the tech guy for this evening youth service. The service was called Hearts of Fire. And Charlie was not a young person. He was later 30s, early 40s. And the service itself was for the youth, the high school youth of the church, as well as college-age students. And what I loved about Charlie was that he was willing to give of his time to help run the tech stuff for the service. And what makes that even more impressive, beyond just caring for the young people and wanting to produce this service so that people have something to attend, was that he worked in the city. He spent his work week in the city working, 10-hour days, but also staying overnight in the city because he didn't want to have to commute back to Centereach, where he also had a house. So he had this apartment, and he would stay in the city during the week. He would come home on the weekends, and he would attend church in the morning on Sundays, and then stay through to the evening service, and then help clean up, and then drive straight from the service back to the city to do the cycle over again, to sleep, to wake up, do work, and then, at the end of the work week, come home and do that all again. So he was very committed, not only to his church, but also to the young people. He was very giving of his time. Beyond that, Charlie was an incredible human. He was very generous. with his time, with his affection, with his relationships, and even with his money. I remember Juliana and I were sitting with him at a restaurant called Angelo's in Manhattan, and we were grabbing lunch with him. We happened to not have something going on during the day, during a work week, so we went in and grabbed lunch with him. Now, this is before we were married, but we're sitting with him, we're talking, not me and Charlie, me and Juliana, my wife. We were just chatting, and he was telling us all about how he was going to get this new car, or he just purchased this new car. And what's funny is that though Charlie had a great job and a great salary, he always lived like incredibly below his means. So he was telling us about getting this new car, which turned out to be a Jetta. He always drove a Volkswagen Jetta. But this Jetta he got was a diesel Jetta, so you had to buy it out of state because New York you couldn't buy a diesel Jetta. And the reason why he bought it was so that he could save even more money on his gas mileage, on his fuel economy. He, instead of buying regular gas, he'd get diesel and get more miles for the gallon. So we're sitting there, he's telling me about the car, we're excited for him, and then I asked him, well, what are you going to do with the Maxima, this this old clunker? And he's like, you want it? I was like, yeah, I was driving a pretty garbagey car, and I was like, yeah, dude, what do you want for it? He's like, he took the key out of his pocket and was like, here, it's yours. And I was stunned. I was like, come on, man, what do you want? I was like, no, take it, get the plates and the registration taken care of, get it insured, it's your car. So he literally told me where it was parked and the Ronkonkoma train station. So when we took the train back, Juliana drove my old car, and I drove the Maxima, and that became my new car. Now that's a great story, but I want to talk about why that was such a great story. You see, Charlie, besides just literally being generous, right? I mean, freely giving of what he has, there's a reason why he was that way. You see, Charlie always gave of his income. He always gave. When he was younger, when he was fresh out of college, he had gotten this job, and while he was working, he was giving to the church. He gave regularly to the church. It was something he did because he felt called to do it. He also believed that if the church was doing its work, he wanted to support the work that it was doing, so he gave regularly. And then Charlie lost his job. And what was amazing is that even when he lost his job, he still gave. He would get unemployment checks in the mail. He would cash those checks and still give a portion of his income to the church. That is amazing. That was the kind of person Charlie was. Now, why did he do that? Because he trusted God with his finances. He trusted God with his well-being. His confidence in God was greater than his confidence in his situation. It wasn't that he would give and then he expected God to just bless him with riches. It was like, you know what? This isn't even mine anyway. I'm a steward of this money. God, here, I want to support the local church. I'm giving because I feel called to do this. I think this is something I'm supposed to do as a Christian, as a person who belongs to you. This is my well-being. I'm trusting you with it. And because of Charlie, and because of that story, not just him giving me the car, but because of the story about him trusting God with his finances while he was employed and while he wasn't employed, right? That's the ups and downs, right? Making money, he gave. And when he was let go, he still gave. It made an incredible impact on me. Because of that, I have been giving of my income since I was in my early 20s. And we have been giving even since Juliana and I have been married. We always give a portion of our income to the local church. We give our income to an organization that we believe is doing God's work in this world, because we have learned from Charlie that we trust God with our finances. And it's it makes people question us because we give such a sizable portion of our income that people think it's weird. And we do it because I learned from Charlie. I'm like, I want that kind of faith. I want that kind of trust in God. So I'm gonna take him up on this challenge. So I started giving, and I'll be honest, I've had my ups and downs financially, but when I look back and I think through everything, I can see God's hand at work. That He was faithful to me when I had a lot. He was faithful to me when I had a little. I mean, there was times where, side work would come up when I needed it to make extra income. And literally when those things, when my income stabilized and the side work like withered away. That's happened more than once in my life. And I believe it's all because of who God is, because he is trustworthy. I would not be the kind of person that I am today if Charlie had not been in my life. I don't think I would be the kind of Christian that I am today if Charlie had not been in my life. I don't think I'd have the same kind of faith that I have now if Charlie had not been in my life. I don't think I would be able to put my faith and trust in God for him to provide for me if Charlie wasn't in my life. And I want you to have that kind of faith too, where you can trust God, where you can even trust him with your finances, your well-being. And I want to invite you to this kind of thing. Now, it's not an invitation to give money to the church. That's not actually what I'm trying to challenge you to today. That's not what I'm trying to invite you to. What I want to invite you to is to invite people into your life to have the same impact that Charlie had on me. Because I believe that my relationship with Charlie was providential. That my connection with him, my friendship with Charlie was a providential relationship. And I want to define providential relationship like this. Very simply, it's a relationship that God uses to grow our faith. A relationship that God uses, that God puts together, because I feel that's how it was for me, that God uses to grow our faith, because God uses people to grow our faith. And this is the uncomfortable thing. This is where it feels a little, because for a lot of people, for a lot of Christians, and even myself, a person who is a professional Christian, who does the Christian thing for a living, talking about faith with other people can be weird. It can be strange, uncomfortable for a lot of reasons. You know, people often say that there's three things you shouldn't talk about: politics, religion, and money, and sex. Well, that's four things. But what's actually, we should be talking about those things. But talking about faith with other people can be strange, because now you're revealing what you believe. And what you believe has major implications about who you are as a person, how you raise your children, how you run your life. And nobody wants to be wrong about their beliefs. Not many people want to even go into discussions or arguments about what they believe, because you might believe differently than someone else. Or you know that there are people who say they believe the same things you believe, but they don't act the same way. And there's some people are really, really offensive, and you don't even want to be associated with them for this. So there's lots of reasons why we don't bring up faith. But faith was never meant to be just a private matter, just a personal thing. It was meant to be a collective, a shared thing. I want us to move from faith and growing our faith from being just a me thing to a we thing. I want us to shift our thinking about faith, about God, about Christianity, from being just a me thing to a we thing. I want us to understand that there is a corporate identity. There's a corporate ownership that we all have when we place our faith in God. The Apostle Paul, a guy who in the first century wasn't a Christian, became a Christian, and started churches and wrote much of what we call the New Testament in the Bible. That's the portion of the scriptures that deal with the life and ministry of Jesus and the time that came after. He talked about the body of Christ, right? The idea that we, the members of the church, right, the individual Christians in the world, are not separated, and that's it. But we are members of one body, that when you succeed, we all succeed. And that when you fail or you struggle, we should feel that we struggle with you, that we are connected, that we belong together. But for a lot of people today, that's not how we live. Right? We like having our own little thing. We like our privacy. We like having our sanctuary at home where, we have our fence around our yards to protect us and keep us. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with those things, but faith is not meant to be that way. Faith is meant to be a team sport. And what's interesting, and what I find very interesting, is that in sports, when people talk about sports, when people love their favorite teams, they talk about it as if they are on the team. I've heard conversations, been a part of conversations where people talk about we really need to win against the Red Sox tonight, and they're talking about the Yankees, and I'm like, it's in my head. I don't say this out loud because it'd be offensive. But what do you mean we you're not playing, you're not batting, you're not fielding, like, but people have this ownership that their identity is a part of that sports team. And I think there's something admirable about that, and I want that for you, for Christians. I want us to think of faith as a we thing, not just a me thing. So, I want to invite you to seek out providential relationships, because God uses people to grow our faith. And that's a weird idea. How do you even know if a relationship is going to be providential? We don't know. We cannot manufacture that. I didn't know, when I first met Charlie, that through the years, right, that his friendship and our relationship would develop such important faith for me. I didn't know that, but I was open to it. I was open to him being in my life. He was vulnerable with me to share his story. And because of that connection, because of that friendship, because of the relationship, his faith grew my faith. And that's an awesome thing. If either one of us, if Charlie or I, had treated faith as purely as a private matter, as a personal thing, and he had not been open to share with me because he thought it was just for him, or I had been closed off and refused to hear what he had to say, I wouldn't be the way that I am. I wouldn't have the faith that I have today. And it's because each person was willing to share or listen, and that had such a profound impact on my life. And what I love is that the Apostle Paul, a guy that I've already mentioned, in a letter he wrote to the church in Ephesus in the first century, right? So this is 2,000 years ago. The things that he wrote then still apply today. And he was addressing them and trying to tell them, like, look, you guys belong to one movement, right? This Christianity thing is not a like you have it over there and I have it over here. It's like we are in this together, and here's what's going on. So he says this. This is Ephesians, the book of Ephesians, the letter to the church in Ephesus, chapter 4, verses 11 through 13. He says, so Christ, referring to Jesus, so Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors and teachers to equip his people for works of service, so that the body may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God, and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. So, what's he saying here? Well, in the first portion, he says, Jesus himself, God, gave us apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors and teachers. Now, there's a lot of debate. Scholars have been arguing about, is he referring to, 4 people, 5 different titles? Are some of them the same? What do the different titles mean? What's an evangelist? What's a prophet? What are the differences? What are the distinctions? And the point is not about the titles. The point isn't about the number of the different types of titles. The point Paul is making is that God gave us other people, and those other people are there to help us grow. If you look at the rest of this passage, he says the reason that this is the case. Verse 12, to equip his people for works of service. Let's pause right there. Those other people are there to help us become the people we were meant to be, to do works of service, to be the hands and feet of God to this world. And to do that, you need faith. And God put those people in place to help us have enough faith to do the works of service that we are called to do. Furthermore, and now he keeps on going, and they're not separate ideas. In fact, they're like synonyms. He's just kind of repeating the same idea with different words. He says this, so that the body of Christ may be built up. The body of Christ might be built up to grow in faith, to grow in strength, to grow in trust, to grow in number, until we all reach unity in the faith. Again, growing, unity in the faith, togetherness, and in the knowledge of the Son of God, right? We're growing in these things. And then to become mature literally means to grow. Attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. Again, he's referring to growth, spiritual growth, faith growth, knowledge of God growth. What he's saying is that those people were put in place so that you and I might grow. And it applies not just to those he was writing to in the first century, but to all believers. That other people are put in place that our faith might grow. Because God uses people to grow our faith. And this is why it is so important that we don't just go through life thinking that faith is a me thing, that it's a private matter. Yes, you can go through life and treat much of life as just a personal, private, closed off thing. But how much better is it when other people are in your lives? For me, Charlie, this is just one example. I could go on and on about different examples, but it's his friendship and his example changed how I live my life. There's a passage in Proverbs where it says, Proverbs is a book of wisdom in the Old Testament written by predominantly a guy named Solomon, who was one of the kings of Israel, who was really, really smart. Perhaps the smartest person that ever lived, though he made some mistakes along the way. He wrote this: as iron sharpens iron, one friend sharpens another. The idea that Charlie sharpened me the same way we sharpen a blade on a piece of metal. Charlie made my life better. He made me a better person, a better Christian. That same principle applies to our relationships. When God puts people in our lives to grow our faith, they're going to make us better. Better at living as a regular person, better as a Christian, to have better faith and trust and stronger faith in God, in who he is and what he says he will do. So, let me ask you a question. If you are a person of faith, if you are a Christian, who has poured into your life? Who has made an impact? Can you think of a person who has done that? You probably can. It'd be surprising if you have nobody, or you can't mention anyone. If that's the case, let me know. But the chances are good that somebody has made a major impact on your faith. Additionally, if you are a Christian, if you are a person of faith, who are you pouring into? Are there people you're near that you can share your faith, your stories, your experiences, and you can help grow their faith? Also, if you're not a person of faith, if you're checking, church out, if you're curious about God and what this all means, would you be willing to allow other people into your vicinity, your space? Well, social distancing, but would you let people come close to you? Would you be willing to hear their stories? Would you open up and let them pour their experiences into your life so that your faith might grow? Because God wants to use other people to grow your faith. Now, how do we do this? Well, we can't, like I said, we can't just manufacture. You can't manufacture providence. You can't do that. That's a God thing. But what you can do is place yourself in the environment in which relationships can happen. So, with Community Church, with our little thing going on, we have avenues to help make this happen. You see, when we gather in person on Sundays, which feels like it's been forever since we've done that, there's some time to talk with people before or after the service. But once the service is in motion, it's a lot of stuff up from the front, right? There's a band leading songs, and there's a congregation, a bunch of people singing or at least taking it all in. And then there's a person speaking from the front and people hopefully taking it in. There's not room for dialogue there. So we have things called community groups. Right now they are all online, and it's a chance for people to sit down to talk about what they heard on Sundays. It's a chance to be real and vulnerable and open with their struggles, their pain, their faith, their questions, their victories in life. And we've been doing this for a couple weeks now. I'm in a community group with my wife Juliana and three other couples, and it's only been 3 weeks so far. Well, 4 weeks, four meetings so far, and it's been awesome. It's been great not only to get to know one another, and that's been a huge thing for me, just staying connected with other people through this time, but I love hearing their stories. I love hearing how, one of the members in our group, she and I were actually at that church in Centereach together, but didn't know each other then, 17 or 18 years ago. Like we were in the same places then, and now we're in a community group today. That's pretty cool. Will the relationships I have in this community group, drastically change my faith? I don't know. It could. I don't know for sure, but I'm open to it, right? And that's the idea. I can't make it happen, but I can be present. I can put myself in relationship with other people so they can pour into me, and perhaps I can even pour into them. I don't know, and we will find out together. So if you're interested, if you're curious about what a community group is, write to us. You can email me, tom@communitychurch.net, or Pastor Lou, lou@communitychurch.net. You can check out our group's website. Go to communitychurch.net/groups to sign up, get some more information, ask questions. So we want you to try this out. We want you to be in relationship because you don't know who's going to grow your faith. And it's this principle, right, that God uses other people to grow our faith. It's this principle that has affected the way we design our church ministries, particularly when it comes to our children, the kids. Our kids' ministries, the areas that they go to on Sundays. Not right now, but it's highly relational. It's not just a thing where they go, they sit down, and they hear from the front. In fact, what they do is they sit down in circles together with other children their age and an adult leader, and they talk about things like trusting God. And the idea is that the relationships they're building with the other kids, that's all important, but the relationship they have with the leader is designed to help them grow their faith. That it's not just, okay, kids, here, I'm just speaking to you, but they can ask questions, they can dialogue. We want to be intentional with our ministry environments of getting people to know one another. It's not enough just to get information, to gain knowledge of the Bible, to sing songs. Those are awesome, those are important, but it's not enough because we're better together, right? The idea that Paul was trying to communicate was that God puts other people in our lives to grow our faith. We don't become the people who we are meant to be, the people that God designed us to be, without other people in our lives. So, what are you going to do about this? What can you do? Well, you can pray about it. You can ask God to give you people. Ask Him to either open your eyes to the people that are already there. That could be those people. Or maybe there's people you haven't even met yet who will impact your faith in a dramatic way. Ask God to make those people available to you. Ask God to open up your heart and your mind to hear those things that other people might share. God might be preparing you to contribute to other people. And if that's the case, if you're starting to feel like, yeah, maybe I want to get involved here, maybe you should consider joining a group. You don't know what you can do while in a group. You might have a dramatic impact on someone else. You might be the person that somebody looks at later in life and goes, that person was a Charlie for me. The story they shared, the beliefs they had, the trust in God they showed during the ups and downs of life, their story made a difference in my life. You might be a Charlie for one of those people. So, that's our challenge this week. It's to say, you know what, God, I'm going to give this a chance. I'm going to let other people into my life with the purpose of having them grow my faith. God, will you help me be open, to be vulnerable, to give this a chance? And Lord, I'm going to trust that you will show up. That's what we're doing this week. So thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time to join me in my home. Hope to see you next week for part 4 of Roots.
Hey, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. I hope that you found Tom's message encouraging and challenging. And just a reminder, everything that you need to know about community groups, how to sign up for them, what they're all about, you can learn all about them at communitychurch.net/groups. And also, if you're new, don't forget to head over to communitychurch.net/connect and then be on the lookout for that gift card in the mail. But, like I said, I'm glad that you chose to connect with us today. If it's Sunday that you're watching this, happy Mother's Day. Make sure you tell your mother that you love her. Give her a hug. And until we meet again, have a great week.